as I'm going to be sharing quite a bit of information this evening, so the one thing that I want for you to do is at the end of the session, I want you to choose one thing that you connected with, one thing that resonated with you, just one thing that you commit to start doing differently from now on. Again, I'm going to be sharing a lot of tips and hacks and solutions to a number of things, but I just want you to choose one thing that you'll start doing, differently. And Ollie and Gary, if you want to check in with the group, in a month's time to see how they got on with their commitments, that would be absolutely fantastic. Okay. So let's actually define first and foremost, what is the ideal performance state. All right. Now, when you think of the ideal performance state, there are two elements that comprise the ideal performance state. The first element is about functioning at near your optimal level. So that means that you are your most productive, your most creative, and you are in this, state of flow more often than not. That's one element of it. The other element is that you need to feel healthy physically, mentally, and emotionally. That means that you're physically energized, you're mentally sharp and clear, and that you're emotionally stable and resilient. So those two elements need to be in place in order for you to achieve your ideal performance state. So if you're the kind of professional, that are, you're hitting your numbers and you're hitting your benchmarks, but you are physically drained, mentally stressed out, and emotionally completely out of sorts, then that's not the ideal performance state. Okay, you actually have to have both. And this is actually possible. So if you just pay attention to the next few minutes, I'll get you closer to this state. But before I go into the theory and the tips, I do want to share a story with you that connects with this concept. So a while back, I was walking down the street and I noticed an advert for a karate exhibition. And I'm not into karate myself, but I said, this is going to be pretty cool because I'm going to see 10, 12 martial art experts. I mean, these people were, I think they were 6th or 7th Dan, which is like the highest rank in karate. And they were going to do an exhibition. So I said to myself, I'm going to be in for a bit of a show. So I'll check it out. So I got to this place a little bit before 4 o'clock and I sat in the second row. And this 10 to 12 men and women came into the dojo, all black belts, highest ranks in karate. And they performed an exhibition for about 45 minutes. And at the end of the 45 minutes, the one word that could describe how I felt about the whole thing was disappointment. I was really disappointed to see these, experts just perform very basic movements. It was all very kind of basic to me. I mean, there were a few jumps and tricks, but I was expecting Cirque du Soleil kind of, performance. So I identified the leader of this group of people, which actually looked like the Kung Fu Panda master, Master Shifu. He even had the long white goatee with the ring, in it. And I went up to Master Shifu, and I'm embarrassed to say this, but I actually said to him, Master Shifu, you know what? I was a little disappointed with the exhibition. I was expecting to see something more of these people. I was expecting to see, flying kicks and pirouettes, but all I saw was, was basic movements. And he looked at me, and without flinching, without hesitating, he said to me, do you know why these men and women are the best, of the best in this martial art? I said, why? Because they do the basics absolutely right. Because it's all about the basics. And he didn't need to say anything else to me because I got the message. I mean, and what I actually witnessed was a master class in the basics. And the reason why these men and women excel at what they did, because they were able to do even better things. It's because they did the basics right. And that moment actually influenced, how I approached my own journey of well-being and what I teach people and what I coach people in this particular topic. So if you really want to be at your best, if you really want to achieve your ideal performance state, there are 6 basics that you need to really pay attention to. And I call them the 6 pillars of well-being. Okay. And I'm pretty sure that you're familiar with them, but let me just remind you what they are. First of all is you need to get restful sleep. Number two, you need to incorporate movement and exercise into your daily routine. Number three, you have to have a very good nutritional life. Number four, you have to manage stress in a very effective way. Number five, you have to have nurturing relationships in your life. And number six, you have to look really well after your body, specifically with this technique that is known as grounding, which I'll go over in a moment. So, when you hear the expression, you need to be firing on all cylinders, well, these are the 6 cylinders that you need to be focusing on if you want to achieve your ideal performance state. So what I'm going to do in the next few minutes is I'm going to just speak briefly on each of these pillars and give you just a few tips that can actually move the needle for you in order for you to achieve this ideal performance state. So let's start with sleep. So nothing escapes the influence of sleep. Sleep affects your psychology, it affects your physiology, it affects every aspect of your being. And let me actually show you some data in connection to that. So if you're the kind of person, for instance, that only gets 6 hours of sleep per night, after 2 weeks of sleeping only 6 hours per night, your cognitive impairment or your capacity to think will equate to someone that has been awake for 2 days. Again, imagine that Gary had been sleeping for 6 hours a night for 2 weeks in a row. When Gary comes to work, on the 15th day, his capacity to think will be the same as someone who stayed awake for 2 days. To make things even worse, if you are the kind of person that only sleeps 5 hours per night for 2 nights in a row only, the third day that you go to work, your capacity to think will equate to someone who's legally drunk. And by the way, if you only got 5 hours of sleep for the last 2 nights, that quadruples, that's 400%, that quadruples your chances of getting a cold. So this really has a massive impact on your health as well. By the way, when people say to me, yeah, I've been catching, colds quite frequently over the past few weeks, the first question I asked him is about, so how are your sleep patterns? And 9 out of 10, they're completely out of sorts. Okay. Now, if obviously, I do a full day session on sleep. So imagine, the sacrifices that I needed to make in order to, condense sleep into a 5-minute, talk, right? So if I have like 32 tips that I can give you, but if I have to choose, 5 out of those 32, these are the 5 that I would like to share with you because they'll move the needle for you. So number 1, obviously, you have to make sure that you always, and this is non-negotiable, you have to sleep between 7 to 9 hours. And again, no negotiable, okay? You cannot sleep less than 7. Number 1 tip, it's minimize caffeine in any shape or form, coffee, tea, energy drinks, sodas, whatever it is that you have that has the word invigorating or energizing in the label that has caffeine in it. And it's because basically caffeine stays in our system for quite a long time, actually. Whatever caffeine we take in, we eliminate 50% of it in about 4 to 6 hours. And the other 50% we eliminate in up to 40 hours, okay? Avoid watching the news. As you know, and this is not just the case in the UK. This is also the case in Peru, where I'm from, in North America. The news, will always be about tragedy, drama, scandal, because they cater to our negative bias as human beings. So, and there are many studies that show that watching the news on a regular basis triggers persistent negative psychological feelings. So if you want to achieve your ideal performance state, I would stay away from reading the news or watching the news. Then avoid using technology at least 1 hour before going to sleep, because the blue light that emanates from the technology tricks the mind into thinking that it's daylight. Okay, so ¿Alguien está entrando?
You're right, Cesar.
Am I on?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought because
we got you loud and clear.
Oh, I thought I got disconnected for some reason.
No.
Let me go back to the deck. I had a message from Soon saying that I had been disconnected. Okay. All right. Are you still with me?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Okay. All right. Then try to be consistent with your bedtime. If you ever go to a sleep clinic, the number one piece of advice that any sleep clinic will give you is you have to go to bed at the same time every evening. And you shouldn't actually go to bed beyond past 10 p.m. Okay. Number 5, this is the sexual activity part, Harry, that I was mentioning. Science recommends, for you to actually engage in sexual activity because that does, it releases the right kind of hormones, it relaxes you, it bonds you with your partner, and it's a great thing if you want to get restful sleep. Like I said, I have like 32 other tips that I can give you, but if you manage to implement these 5, you'll be on your way. Next up is exercise.
Sorry, I think Danielle has a question for you.
Yes, Danielle, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask whether those 7 to 9 hours, do they have to be uninterrupted, or if you generally get that amount over a 24-hour period, is that okay?
And when you mean an interrupted or uninterrupted, how long is the interruption, Danielle?
Oh, so let's say potentially you sleep for like 6 hours, but then you have like a 2-hour nap in the afternoon, for example.
Yeah, okay. So naps are absolutely great. They're fantastic, but they should not exceed 26 minutes.
26 minutes.
26 okay. minutes, yeah. And I can tell you the story of why. This was conducted by experiments done by NASA. They were trying to test out, the most what's the appropriate time, for astronauts to reach their peak performance, and it was 26 minutes. So actually, if I spend a lot of time at Silicon Valley every year, well, not this year, didn't go, obviously, and you hear people on campus saying, "Did you take your NASA nap? Did you take your NASA nap?" Because it's very much encouraged that, because when you go beyond 26 minutes, then you enter the deep sleep phase, and if you get woken up when you're in the deep sleep phase, it's really horrible. You start experiencing something called sleep inertia, and that can really be very, very distracting and disorienting for the next even 2 hours. And if you go beyond 90 minutes, then that will basically impact your ability to go to sleep earlier as well.
Okay, so would you say you would have 7 hours and then have your NASA nap as well?
7 hours minimum. Okay, minimum. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, we're fine on this, by the way. I'm just interested.
Yeah. And then later on, we can talk about all the other details. But minimum 7 hours and 26 minutes. A 26-minute nap. Yeah, I do it religiously, Monday through Sunday myself.
Oh, love it. Thank you.
All right. Okay, moving on then to the next pillar, which is movement. Okay. Now, obviously, we all know that we need to exercise. We all know that we need to, move our body. So let me just highlight a couple of things that are important in this respect. So first of all, this is the latest guideline as to how much exercise we actually need. This was actually published in October of 2019, and it hasn't been revised since because it hasn't been necessary. So you need 150 minutes a week of moderate intensity aerobic activity. So that doesn't mean that you need to go to a gym and hire a personal trainer. You can actually get that by cycling, swimming, walking your dog, playing sports, and even doing heavy gardening. Okay. And then obviously 2 days of muscle strengthening activity. So that's the guideline, right? Now, in terms of movement is something that you need every single day. Okay. And I would like to actually highlight one specific aspect of movement, which is walking. I want to share with you a study that really blew my mind when it was presented to us. So a while back, I was in Washington, D.C., when things were a lot calmer than in the past couple of days. And I went to an employee well-being congress. And one of the scientists that was given a lecture shared with us a study that he had conducted, and then it was confirmed by other studies after that really blew our minds. He had someone in his laboratory sitting down for about an hour, doing nothing. This person was not checking email, and was not checking his phone, nothing. And after an hour of sitting quietly, the scientist took an MRI of his brain. And this is the image of this person's brain after sitting quietly for an hour. Now, if you're not familiar with what the colors mean in an MRI, so blue means baseline activity, and then red means very high activity. So the spectrum goes blue, yellow, green, orange, and red, okay? And this area that you see highlighted in green here, or in light green actually, is the area associated with deep thought and creative thinking, something that entrepreneurs and founders actually need a lot of, right? Deep thought and creative thinking. Now, the scientists then asked this particular person to just get up and walk for 20 minutes without his phone, without doing anything in particular, just, take a walk for 20 minutes. As a matter of fact, he sent his lab assistant with him just to make sure that he wasn't doing anything else. So this guy went out for a walk and then came back 20 minutes later, and then they took another MRI image of his brain. And I want you to pay attention to what happened to the areas of his brain associated with deep thinking and creative thought. They lit up like a Christmas tree. Okay, let me actually zoom this so you can see it more clearly. After a 20-minute walk, the areas associated with deep thought and creative thinking lit up like a Christmas tree. Okay, so it doesn't, it didn't come as a surprise when, another study showed that there's a 70% improvement in our ability to make complex decisions when we incorporate movement in our day. So 70%, I mean, look at that number. That's a massive number. Okay, and all it takes is just a brief walk. Okay, so I want you to start redefining how you view walking from now on. I'm hoping that you start taking walking breaks as well during the day. All right, let's move on to nutrition. Okay, and not many people understand the impact that bad nutrition has on productivity. As a matter of fact, there is an increased risk of productivity loss up to 66% when it comes to eating an unhealthy diet. And again, another massive number, 66% of increased risk of productivity loss if you have an unhealthy diet. Now, if you want to have a healthy diet, the last thing that you should do is get on these diet trends, like the keto diet or the paleo diet, because you have to understand that the diet industry sets you up to fail. I mean, the diet industry in the UK alone is worth £2 billion. Okay, and the whole idea to keep it going is that you keep on buying the books and buying the programs, because if not, if you find a solution, then you're not going to resort to their help anymore. Okay, so the best way to approach your nutritional life is to develop sustainable, healthy eating habits that you enjoy. And I like to highlight the 4 keywords in the definition: sustainable, healthy habits, and most importantly, that you enjoy. Okay. And when you hear about nutrition, and I'm really completely shocked at why not many people actually address this, but the very, very first thing that you need to address when it comes to your nutrition, if you want to achieve your ideal performance state, is hydration. I don't know if you know this, but even a 1% dehydration level in your body can actually create a 14% increased risk of productivity loss in you. 1% dehydration level, up to 14% increased risk of productivity loss. Imagine that, okay? And so how much water should you be taking if you want to achieve your ideal performance state? Danielle, you should be taking 2.7 liters of water every day. And for the rest of you guys, 3.7 liters of water. Now, if you think this is a lot of water, the one thing that will actually help you drink this much water is, as soon as you wake up, drink a third of the recommended daily intake within the hour that you wake up. Because when you wake up, that's when you're the most dehydrated. So within the first hour, your body will actually love to have all that water, and it'll be easier to drink it, okay? So a third of the intake within 1 hour of waking up, okay? Now, again, basic principle of nutrition, you should avoid as much as you can what are known as the RPM foods. What are the RPM foods? Foods that are refined, processed, or manufactured. And foods that are refined or processed, they're refined or processed because they want to either increase or enhance the taste of the foods or extend their shelf life. Okay, but in the process, they add lots of salt, sugar, fats, calories, and even all these artificial chemicals, right? So examples of RPM foods: breakfast cereal, cheese, tin vegetables, white bread, sausage rolls, bacon, cakes, soft drinks, and microwave ready meals. I mean, speaking of microwave ready meals, I mean, that's the closest you're gonna get to radioactive. I rather actually stick my neck in a nuclear reactor than actually have one of those meals. So just obviously try to stay away from those. So what kind of food should you favor then? You should actually favor a plant-based diet, and the thing is that when people think about a plant-based diet, they, oh my gosh, I'm going to eat rabbit food. I'm going to have to eat, lettuce and carrots all the time. And people do not get the fact that a plant-based diet is actually very rich, in many different ingredients, and it's super tasty. I mean, when the government allows, I would encourage you to actually go to a vegetarian restaurant and order their flagship dish. And you would be surprised as to all the ingredients you didn't know that existed in the plant-based world. And the taste is just amazing as well. Okay. And obviously, just as a reminder, the plant-based includes not only fruits and vegetables, but tubers, whole grains, and legumes as well. Right. A very easy rule of thumb to follow is that every time you sit down to eat, in order to get the highest nutritional value, you should make sure that all the colors of the rainbow are represented in your plate. That's a very easy way to make sure that you're eating a highly nutritional food, because most of those colors will come from the plant kingdom. Okay, and if you're still uncertain on how to go about developing or engaging in a plant-based diet, then there's a few books that you can buy. These are my two favorite ones as well. Okay. And obviously, there's nothing wrong with eating, red meat or meat, or every now and again, but you should follow the principle, the 80-20 rule, which is the principle that I follow myself. 80% of the time behave, and favor a plant-based diet, and 20% of the time, you can cheat and you can do, you can have your snack or your muffin or whatever it is that you like. But make sure you keep it to 80-20 and not 60-40, right? All right, moving on to the next pillar, which is stress management. Now, this concept is quite broad, and we can approach it in a number of different ways. But right now, I just want to focus on what is it that actually triggers stress in us as human beings. Now, I want you to look at this picture, and I want you to imagine that you are in the front row of this roller coaster car. Now, some of you might be feeling, the experience of the excitement. It's thrilling. It's absolute fun, absolute bliss. And some of you might be saying to yourself, "There's absolutely, it's horrific, completely terrified, and this is a completely stressing experience." Right? Now, think about it for a moment. Danielle, do you like roller coasters? Do you hate them?
I'm not a fan. No.
Not a fan.
Not a fan.
Stress you out?
Just unnecessary.
Okay, let's say that it stresses you out, for example's sake. Okay, and Gary, do you like roller coasters?
I think it's one of them things that when you was younger, yes, and then as you get older, you think, "What's the point? There's no benefit." Okay,
for example's sake, let's go back to the Gary in the 80s. Okay. Or in the 90s, I should say. I don't know your age, Gary, so help me out.
It was more the 80s.
The 80s, okay, all right. So Gary and Danielle are in the front row of this roller coaster. Danielle is completely stressed out of her mind, and Gary is in complete ecstasy. Now, can Danielle blame the roller coaster for her stress? Not really. So what's going on here? It's Danielle's perception of the experience that creates the stress. And this, if you really understand this, I mean, you're really going to have, the capacity to do something about how you manage your stress. Because once we understand that it's our perception of external circumstances that generates the stress, then we're home free. If we start blaming other people or circumstances or events for our stress, then we're done. We're giving our power away. And by the way, we've known this for a long time. We've known this for thousands of years. And I don't know if you recognize the gentleman here in the picture, but his name was Marcus Aurelius. He was one of the 5 good emperors of Rome. And in his book, Meditations, he actually wrote this. He said, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. So let me actually highlight the most important parts of his statement here. The pain is not due to the thing itself. So the stress is not due to the external circumstances. It's your estimate of it, and you have the power to revoke it, to revoke at any moment. And that's the most important part of the definition. So not only is he reminding us that, that it's our interpretation that creates the stress, but we have the power to revoke that as well. And how, if I had to choose out of all the different stress management techniques, what is the number one, what is the mother of all the, stress management techniques? I would say, not just me, but science would agree that a daily meditation practice will actually help you to manage your stress more effectively. And by the way, meditation gives you much more benefits than stress management, but I'll just talk about meditation in this context. And why is that? Because all of us in this call have a biological predisposition to stress. What does that mean? It means that some of us react to stress, external circumstances in a more, stressful manner, and others, react to the same external circumstances in a much more calmer way. So it's like a spectrum, okay? And and by the way, if you're the kind of person that reacts in a very stressful manner to, mundane circumstances, that means that your brain's set point, that's a scientific word for it, your brain's set point is to the right side of the spectrum. So you react in a more stressful manner to even mundane things. But if you react in a very calm way to even very challenging circumstances, that means that your brain's set point is to the left side of the spectrum. And we can talk, we can spend hours talking about how, we get the set point that we get. But the most important thing is that we can actually, change our brain's set point to the calmer side of the spectrum. And how do we do that? We do that through the process of daily meditation. When we meditate for 5 or 10 minutes every day, using whatever technique you'd like, you activate your prefrontal cortex. You start secreting, what in science are known as the happy hormones: oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, and that eventually will help you to start going much closer to the calmer side of the spectrum in time. And actually, because the meditation practice in itself will actually rewire your neural network in your brain. And as a matter of fact, there's now plenty of studies that show that if you engage in a meditation practice on a daily basis, 5 to 10 minutes a day, in the space of about 2 to 3 weeks, you can actually see in your brain, literally, the physical rewiring of your neural network that will actually change your brain's set point and bring it to the calmer side of the spectrum. And by the way, we've known this for a number of years now. I mean, meditation science has been around for 40 years. Scientists have been measuring, the changes in our neural network for the past 30 years, since the advent of MRI technology. And studies are plenty, showing, basically confirming what I've just shared with you. And, if you meditate every single day, most of the brain's executive functions will be enhanced, and all of this brain functions will be enhanced as well. And I think you've seen this in the media as well. This article came out in 2003, The Science of Meditation. And then in 2014, we had the Mindful Revolution. And the reason why the media has been giving it so much attention is because of the impact of the practice. And even in business circles, this practice has been actually quite welcome. This is the World Economic Forum, where great leaders come together, and they've been meditating since 2012. Now, if you really want to learn more about this particular practice, I would suggest for you to actually buy this book called The Science of Meditation, written by two Harvard scholars, Dr. Daniel Goleman, whom you might remember from the emotional intelligence movement, and Dr. Richard Davidson, who's a neuroscientist, a Harvard scholar as well. The best book on the topic, if you want to know more about what this practice will do for you, okay? All right, next one up is relationships. You need to have nurturing relationships in your life if you want to achieve your ideal performance state. And this was quite revealing to me when I first learned about this many, many years ago. I was at a conference, again in America, and it was a neuroscience conference, and there were like 4 neuroscientists on stage. And the chap next to me during the Q&A asked a very peculiar question to one of the scientists on the panel. And the question was, Dr. Mane, if you could describe the words if you could describe the brain in 2 words, what would those 2 words be? And Dr. Mane, without flinching, without hesitating, without doubt, he immediately said, the brain is a social organ. And I looked at the other neuroscientists on the panel, and they were all nodding their heads. Yeah, why is that? Because when we interact with other people, and by the way, socializing means having a conversation without a defined purpose. Okay, so you can socialize at work, and you can socialize at home, and you can socialize at the bus stop, okay? When you socialize with someone, 2 main things happen. Number 1, all the healing mechanisms in the brain become very, very active. So your brain becomes, healed just by the process of interacting with someone, in a social manner. And then, all of the executive functions, so your capacity, so rational thinking, logical thinking, leading, organizing, planning, executing, all of those functions become enhanced just by the process of interacting with someone. And that's why these neuroscientists are saying that the brain actually needs socializing. It's part of its survival mechanism. And as a matter of fact, now if you go to a GP, most likely, and in the past 5 or 7 years, I've seen a lot of GPs, joining this movement of what is known as social prescribing. I've seen GPs actually write down in their prescription pads, socialize. And even now the NHS actually, if you tell your GP that you don't have any friends, that no one likes you, or no one wants to hang out with you, the NHS now has a full, network of support for you. So they'll help you join walking groups or cooking groups or mindfulness groups. So they have a whole system that will actually help you to join groups of people that have your same interests. So I'm so glad that I'm seeing this happening, because rather than writing what do you call it, pharmaceuticals on the prescription pad, now they're writing you need to socialize more, right? So what do the experts say in terms of how much time should we socialize a day? We should be socializing between 5 to 6 hours a day. Okay, and you might think like, oh my gosh, where am I going to get time, for doing this? Again, you can do this at work, you can do this at home, and you can socialize through social media as well. So as long as you're interacting with someone on the other side of the of the screen, that counts. I mean, if you go on Facebook just to kind of check out who your ex is dating, that's not socializing. That's actually kind of creepy. Okay, you need to be actually interacting with someone on the other side of the screen. Okay, it's very, very important that you meet your socializing quota if you want to achieve your ideal performance state. And lastly, grounding. Now, you might have not heard this before, but grounding has become a very, very hot topic in the past 10 years. And grounding actually means having direct contact with the earth. So let me explain. For the past, I've been in the UK for about 12 years, and for the past 8 years, I've been attending the event, an annual event that the College of Medicine runs in London. And this event is usually attended by GPs and by scientists and by a number of different professionals in the health field. And for as long as I can remember, they've been talking about the benefits of grounding, which is basically, let me actually define grounding for you, which is direct physical contact with the Earth's electromagnetic field, okay, to promote health and well-being. So let me just, give you the theory of it so that you can understand why this is so important. So as you can imagine, if we try to understand what are we made of, obviously the first answer will be we're made of tissue, and that tissue is made of cells, and those cells are made of molecules, and those molecules are made of atoms, okay? Now, this is a very, very important thing to understand. Atoms obviously have electrons in their orbit, and those electrons need to be paired. Every single atom needs to have a paired electron, okay? But sometimes these healthy atoms lose an electron and they become an unhealthy atom. And in what circumstances do these atoms actually lose their electrons? If we eat junk food, if we ingest pesticides in the food that we buy, if we are overexposed to electromagnetic waves, if we are overexposed to pollution, if we smoke, or if we are overexposed to ultra-ray violets. So all of those things might actually lead to our atoms lose one of those electrons. And once that atom loses an electron, then it becomes an unstable, unhealthy atom. And these unhealthy and unstable atoms are referred to as well as free radicals. And this is a term that perhaps you've heard before, free radical. This is what it actually means, an atom that has lost its electron. Now, the problem is that when an atom loses an electron, it becomes very unstable, and it creates something in the body called inflammation. And if you look at inflammation in an MRI image, you'll see that red spots. It's basically your immune system attacking healthy tissue in your body. And inflammation can happen in any organ, in any part of your body. And most autoimmune diseases are caused by chronic inflammation, which are caused obviously by these free radicals. And as a matter of fact, COVID is an inflammatory disease. As you can see here in the bottom part of your screen, COVID-19 illness can result in excessive inflammation throughout the body, including the lungs, heart, and brain. And again, we have all these free radicals causing inflammation in our body. So how do we regain that electron that we lost due to poor nutrition, due to lack of exercise, due to exposure to ultraviolet violets, and due to all of the things that I mentioned? The one thing that you can do is walk barefoot on Earth. And why is that? Because the Earth's surface is actually filled with free electrons. And as soon as you place your bare foot on natural ground, you absorb those free electrons into your body. Okay, this is another picture of it. So if you have inflammation in your body, if you have all these unstable atoms in your body, as soon as you have direct contact with Earth, you'll absorb those free electrons, and that unhealthy atom will turn into a healthy atom. And going back to the science of it, this is an image of someone with a high degree of inflammation in their lower back. And after 2 hours of grounding, after 2 hours of having direct contact with Earth, look at, there was another MRI image taken of this person. Look at what happened to the levels of inflammation. They came down immediately. And by the way, obviously the best way and the easiest way to absorb these free electrons is by, again, walking barefoot on Earth. But obviously, if it's wintertime and it's very dark and it's very cold and there's no way that you can actually walk barefoot on natural ground, then there are alternative ways of grounding yourself. So you can buy what are known as earthing mats, okay? And as you can see, these mats have a plug and they connect to the earth pin in your normal plugs. So when you plug those mats into the sockets, into the electrical outlets at home, you'll just be actually connecting to the earth pin, so you will not get electrocuted or anything like that. As a matter of fact, I have one of these right here with me. And I'm not barefoot because it's cold, but I don't know if you can see, I'm just wearing socks because socks don't really interfere with the process of absorbing those electrons. And as you're working and as you're sitting down, you're actually grounding yourself. And you can buy earthing mats or earthing sheets as well. I have earthing sheets at home as well, so you can keep grounded. And believe me, this actually, is absolutely essential if you want to keep inflammation levels down in the body. Okay. So I've spoken already about these grounding methods. Yeah. So those are the 6 pillars that you should be very concerned about. These are the 6 areas in your being that you should really pay attention to if you want to achieve your ideal performance state. I mean, I wish I could have spent more time talking about each of these pillars. Like I said, I run full day sessions on each of these pillars. It's quite a sacrifice for me to just be able to speak 5 or 6 minutes for each of about each of these pillars. But at least I want to give you a panoramic view, the things that you should be focusing on if you want to, function at an optimal level and feel great physically, mentally, and emotionally. And so I just want to go around the room right now, and I want you to each tell me what thing will you start doing differently. So what's your commitment? So I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I want to see you. So as I call your name, just tell me, what's the one thing that you are going to start doing differently? So Danielle, starting with you.
Well, I think the grounding.
The grounding, huh? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Grinding is a different thing.
Not that. Yeah, no. More grinding, yeah. Yeah, definitely that.
All right. And again, you can do that by walking barefoot on earth, or you can buy one of those earthing sheets or earthing mats. Okay. Fantastic. Gary, what about you?
I was going to say the same as Danielle with the grounding. I mean, I found that fascinating. But actually, the meditation, I think 10 minutes a day is fine. Diet-wise, I'm actually plant-based, so I'm good there. And drink more water. So it's probably 3 things.
Fantastic. And by the way, Gary, if you were to ask me what 3 things completely revolutionized and changed my life, number 1 was learning to walk. Number 2 was learning to speak. Number 3 was learning to meditate, because it completely revolutionized my physical, mental, and emotional life in every sense of the way. My wife keeps on asking me, why am I not in the top 3? I say, you're in the top 5, don't worry, but there you go. Matthew.
I'm going to probably go with the hydration, purely because I drink far too much coffee and tea during the day, so that affects the sleep. So they're connected. And then that's linked with the exercise, doing more exercise, which I suspect is a common theme, but just getting into the habit of that. I was fascinated by the brain activity comparison that you put up, actually. So yeah. I'm going to ask at the time, when you say a 20-minute walk, is that just once a day, or is that 2 or 3 times a day?
It doesn't need to
get that reaction.
It doesn't need to be 20. You can do a 10-minute walk in mid-morning and a 10-minute walk in the afternoon, and that's absolutely fine, as long as you incorporate movement every day. I mean, you have to understand that we've been on this earth for the past 3.5 million years. And on average, according to deep historians, human beings used to walk between 50 to 60,000 steps a day. And a lot of people are very keen on walking, 10,000 steps, right? And we haven't really outgrown that, right? Am I saying that you should be walking 50 to 60,000 steps a day? No. But what I'm saying is that you should incorporate some level of movement every single day. So if you walk for 10 minutes mid-morning and 10 minutes mid-afternoon, that's fantastic.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So John?
I like the hydration piece. I thought I drank a healthy amount of water, but yeah, I'm probably a good litre off the 3.5 litres. Probably explains for me being so dozy most of the time. But
that's a good choice, John. And we have to remember that the human body is made, 60 to 70% of water, and if you look at the individual organs, our brain is made of 68% water, our liver is made of 74% water, most of our organs are made of water 60% plus.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So it's the key ingredient to, you know, to our physical being. So good choice, John. Paul?
Well, I'm all up for, on the joking side, for the social. So as soon as the pubs are open, the 6 hours socialising is up my street. But on a serious note, when we see you come to Vistage, the two things that jump out for me: water, I'm useless with. The water is something I definitely need to increase. The meditation, I really tried that. I think we committed to doing 30 days when we see you last time of the meditation, and I found the morning really difficult, because the thought of getting up in the morning, I like to just get out of bed and full steam ahead and crack on with my day. The thought of then just like relaxing and meditating, just, I don't know, I just couldn't do it. The nighttime one, I was more successful with, but yeah, maybe I need to try that meditation as well.
Yeah, and just remind yourself, Paul, that even, you know, start out with doing it for 2 minutes or 3 minutes. And then just remind yourself that by doing a 2 or 3 minute meditation in the morning, that sets you up for the rest of the day. It brings your mind into focus. It helps you, you know, to find more clarity. It really sets you up for the rest of the day. So if you reframe, you know, the reason why you want to meditate in the morning, and then if you start, very, in a very conservative way, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And then you'll start seeing that, oh yes, this actually helps to set my mind, set me up, for the day. I mean, it's better to do that than to wake up and watch, BBC News and look at, the everything that's going on in, in the U.S.
It's just someone bought me for Christmas the headband. Do they work? Do you plug it in?
With what headband?
Well, it's got plug in, and maybe someone's having a wind up, but it's a plug in thing, and it's got like, I don't know, sort of circles, and it picks up data.
Just go natural, Paul. Go natural. You don't need any tech. Fantastic. Hey, Harry.
Okay, I'm going to be particular about the hydration, actually, Cesar. I'm going to try and drink a third of my minimum 3.7 litres in the first hour. I'm not bad about water during the day, but I haven't been doing that. And so that's certainly something that I'm going to try.
Fantastic.
I have, since my last commitment with you was the meditation. And like you've just said to Paul, what broke the back for me is I started off by just doing a few minutes, and that got me into it, rather than trying to do 20 minutes, just trying to do start off maximum 5 minutes a day. I'm now up to about 10 minutes a day.
Oh, fantastic.
A couple of minutes at a time,
That's great to hear, Harry. It's great news. Thank you for sharing. Thomas.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the hydration thing. I think with us all being stuck working from home for the next sort of few weeks, there's not really any excuse to try and get that first third of those liquids in. I might not be so good on the nutrition. If I stop drinking wine, then I'd have to find a way to make up another litre somewhere of fluids. So I think I'll just try and get the early morning water into me. Yeah,
I mean, there's nothing wrong with wine,
There's absolutely nothing wrong with wine at all.
Yeah, no, it's so what the experts are saying is that we shouldn't actually exceed, if we are going to drink alcohol throughout the week, let's say if we take into account the 7-day week, only 3 days out of the 7. Okay, that's like kind of the benchmark. And if you go beyond that, then you need to start asking yourself questions like, why am I needing this, right? But so 3 days out of the 7, and then try not to go for that third glass, and that's okay. So enjoy your wine. But do you have a preference, Thomas?
Well, yeah, I drink red wine. Yeah. Do I need to be more specific?
No, I thought you like a specific chateau in France, and that perhaps you had a recommendation for us, but that's all right.
No.
One of the great things about red wine, Thomas, is that it tends to come in bigger glasses. So you can have 3 very big glasses.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay, Ollie, your go.
Water, I'm well beneath 3.7 litres a day. That has got to be a change, and drinking more water in the morning. I tend to get up in the morning, first thing, black coffee, bang. That's got to change. And the grounding, I think that grounding is wonderful. I often feel that when you're walking around on holiday in the sun, on the beach, on grass, particularly in the Algarve or something like that, where the grass is softer, I think you do feel better. It makes you feel better. So there's something in that. So grounding and the water. And one question for you, Cesar, just very quickly. Each of those 6 cylinders is very, very important. But if you had to prioritize them, I mean, I'd imagine it'd be done on an individual basis. Where would you stand on that? Or were they all equally important as each other?
It's like, deciding which of my children I love the best, but
well, sometimes that's easy.
But arguably sleep, for sure.
Okay.
Because sleep is the basis of everything. Obviously, nutrition is important as well, but I would start with sleep.
Yeah.
It's just every single cell and fiber of our being is impacted by the quality of our sleep, for better or for worse. I mean, we've got 12 organ systems, the reproductive system, the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, immune system, all of those systems, all of them, go completely out of whack if we're sleep deprived. So, and that impacts everything else, So for instance, if we are sleep deprived, then that increases our craving. So most likely we'll be eating high calorie fatty foods, and it'll hurt our relationships because we'll be moody, we'll be, Danielle is here, so I cannot say the word, but but you know what I mean. So I would start with sleep if I had to choose. All right, Edward.
Hi, Cesar. That was really interesting. I came in a bit late, so I missed the first part. But I think for me this year, probably nutrition is quite a big one. But also I'm quite interested in the concept of fasting as well, because I know I eat too much. I do a lot of exercise, to be honest, but I know overeating is quite easy to do in this day and age. And I think, being able to control that a little bit better and being a little bit more educated in terms of what I'm putting into my system, and maybe being a little bit more disciplined about having a sort of a routine of what I'm eating, is what I'm going to be looking at.
Yeah, and remember that the key is the strategy should always be, how do I develop a sustained healthy eating habit that I actually enjoy, and the 4 key words being sustainable, healthy eating, habit, and enjoyment. Okay, and that's all. That should always be the strategy, because and there's nothing wrong with fasting every now and again, but if you want to fast just because you want to reach a very specific immediate goal, is that sustainable? Is that actually something you're going to keep doing, on a regular basis? So, I know a lot of people that actually do intermittent fasting that does wonders for them, and a lot of people that suffer through it because they're just doing it because it's the latest fad, and they don't know how to do it, and so just be mindful of reaching that, balancing out. Okay, and by the way, I do want to, if you can take your mobiles out for a moment and take a picture of what I'm going to share on the screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Just take a picture because that's my email address. And if you have any questions, comments, remarks, if you need any help, whatever it is that you need, just email me. You will not, you won't believe how responsive I am, particularly with the people that I get a chance to, to engage in this particular format, and more than happy to answer any of your questions. And if you're trying something out, if you're engaging in your commitment, and after 2 weeks you have a doubt or a question about how you're doing it, and then just email me, and I'll be more than happy to help. Okay.
Thank you very much, Cesar.